Dear learners, welcome to this video lecture on the theories of personality. Of all the mysteries that have challenged human thinker since the dawn of history, perhaps the most profound is the riddle of our own nature. Why do we act the way we do? What makes one person fundamentally different from another? Today, we will explore how various psychologists have attempted to answer these questions by developing frameworks that describe, explain, and predict human behavior. We will move from the ancient roots of the term personality to the complex modern theories that define our current understanding of the human psyche. Before we dive into the specific theories, let us establish our roadmap. By the end of this lecture, you will be able to define the term personality from both a historical and a modern psychological perspective. We will examine the distinct characteristics that make personality a unique field of study. Furthermore, we will critically analyze the major schools of thought, ranging from Sigmund Freud's focus on the unconscious to Abraham Maslow's emphasis on human potential. We will also cover the behavioral insights of B.F. Skinner. This comprehensive overview will provide you with a robust foundation for understanding human individuality. To understand personality, we must first look at where the word comes from. The English word personality is derived from the Latin term persona. Originally, this refers to the mask worn by actors in ancient Greek dramas. Over time, the meaning expanded to include the role the actors played. The history suggested an interesting question. Is our personality merely a mask or a superficial social image we adopt to play a role in life? In everyday conversation, people often equate personality with social skill like charm or physical attractiveness. However, in psychology, we view it as the sum total of characteristics that make an individual unique. It is the overall impression a person makes on others. Their most striking or dominant traits, such as being consistently shy or notably aggressive. Different theorists provide us with the different lenses through which to view personality. For example, Carl Rogers sees personality as the self, a permanent and organized entity that sits at the center of all our experience. Gordon Allport takes a more internal approach, defining it as what a person really is, serving as an internal guide for all human activities. Erik Erikson views personality through the lens of development, suggesting it is the result of how we handle various life crises. Meanwhile, George Kelly focuses on the mind, seeing personality as our unique way of interpreting the world. Finally, Sigmund Freud offers a structural view where personality is a constant interaction between the id, the ego, and the superego. As we see, there is no single definition, but rather a collection of perspectives that highlight different aspects of the human experience. What are the fundamental characteristics that define personality? First, personality is an abstraction. We cannot see a personality directly. Instead, we infer its existence by observing how a person behaves over time. Second, the term highlights the palpable uniqueness of every individual. By studying personality, we identify the specific combination of properties that make you different from everyone else. Finally, personality is not a static or fixed thing. It is an evolving process. It is constantly shaped by a variety of influences, including our genetic makeup, our biological tendencies, our social interactions, and our changing environment. We have defined personality as stemming from the Latin word for mask through modern psychology view as an internal evolving system that defines our uniqueness and guides our behavior. Why do we need theories of personality? Theories are essentially elaborate hypotheses about why people behave the way they do. They serve two primary functions in psychology. They are descriptive and predictive. A descriptive theory provides a framework or a map to organize everything we know about human behavior, making it easier to understand. On the other hand, a predictive theories allow us to anticipate how a person might react in a future situation. For a theory to be scientifically useful, its concepts must be testable. If we cannot test a theory to see if it is right or wrong, it remains a mere speculation rather than a scientific tool. It is important to remember that personality theorists are human beings, and like all of us, they have their own belief about human nature. These beliefs or basic assumptions deeply affect the theories they create. For instance, some believe that our actions are rooted in unconscious motives buried deep in our past, which we are not even aware of. Others believe we are rational beings, fully aware of why we do what we do based on our current circumstances. Some theorists make this assumption clear, while others incorporate them so deeply into their work that they become hard to spot. Whether they are explicit or hidden, these assumptions are the foundation of every personality model we study. Let us begin with the one of the most famous figures in psychology, Sigmund Freud. Freud theory is built on the idea that our first psychological makeup has three parts. First is the id, the instinctual core that is present from birth. It is irrational and wants immediate gratification. This is known as the pleasure principle. Next is the ego, the rational side of our personality. The ego operates on the reality principle, trying to find safe and socially acceptable ways to satisfy its urge. Finally, there is the superego, our internal moral compass. It represents the rules of society and our own conscience. How these three elements interact determine our behavior. What drives us to act? Freud believed the answer lies in instinct. He defined an instinct as an innate state of tension or excitation that seeks release. Every instinct has four essential parts. The source is the physical need, like hunger. The aim is to get rid of that tension. The object is whatever will satisfy the need. In the case of hunger, that would be food. And the impetus is the strength or urgency of that drive. According to Freud, our entire lives are spent trying to manage these internal tensions in a world that doesn't always allow for immediate satisfaction. Freud also proposed that our personality is formed through several psychosexual stages: the oral, anal, phallic, and genital stages. He believed that how we navigate this stage as children shape who we become as adults. Central to this process is the concept of anxiety. Freud identified three types: reality and anxiety, which is a fear of actual danger; neurotic anxiety, which is the fear that our impulses will get out of control; and moral anxiety, which is essentially the feeling of guilt. To cope with this anxiety, the ego uses defense mechanisms like repression, pushing thoughts into the unconscious, or projection, where we attribute our own faults to others. How do we view Freud today? His theory assumes that human behavior is largely determined by irrational forces and unconscious motives. While some of his ideas are hard to test scientifically, they have had a massive impact on therapy. Techniques like free association and dream analysis are still used to probe the unconscious. The ultimate goal of Freudian therapy is to help a person gain deeper self insight and undergo emotional re education. Freud introduced us to the conflict between our animal instinct, the id, and our social morals, the superego, moderated by the rational ego, and shaped by childhood development and defense mechanisms. Moving away from Freud's focus on conflict and the unconsciousness, we find Abraham Maslow and the humanistic movement, often called the third force in psychology. Maslow felt that earlier theories focused too much on the mental illness or mechanical behavior. He wanted to focus on psychological health and what makes human creative and basically good. A key belief in humanism is that you cannot understand a human being by studying animals in a lab. Humans are unique, integrated wholes who have a natural drive to grow and improve. Maslow is best known for his hierarchy of needs. He suggested that we are motivated by a series of needs that must be met in order. We start with the most basic physiological needs like food and water. Once those are met, we look for safety. Then we seek love and belonging, followed by self esteem. At the very top of this pyramid is self actualization. This is the highest level of human fulfillment where a person reaches their full potential. Have you ever felt that once you had enough to eat and a safe place to live, you start caring more about your friendships or your personal goals? This is exactly the progression Maslow described. Maslow's theory makes a very different assumption about human nature compared to Freud. He believed in freedom and rationality. He thought people are capable of change and that our subjective experience of the world is what matters most. Instead of just trying to stay in a state of balance, what we call homeostasis, Maslow believed humans seek heterostasis, which is the active pursuit of growth and new challenges. His work has inspired a great deal of research into what it actually means to be self-actualized person. Similar to Maslow, Carl Rogers believed that human nature is essentially good, purposeful, and trustworthy. He proposed that every human has one single master motive, the actualizing tendency. This is our innate drive to maintain and enhance ourselves. Rogers' approach is called phenomenological because he believes that the only reality matters is the one you perceive. Your private world of experience is your subjective reality. To understand someone, you must try to see the world through their eyes. At the heart of Rogers' theory is the self. As we grow, we develop a need for positive regard. We want to be loved and accepted by others. However, we often encounter conditions of worth where people only give us love if we act in a certain way. This can lead to incongruence, which is a gap between who we think we are and what we actually experience. When this gap becomes too large, it causes anxiety and psychological distress. On the other hand, If we are open to our experiences and trust ourselves, Rogers call us fully functioning persons. Rogers was very clear about his assumptions. Like Maslow, he championed human freedom and the ability to change. He rejected the idea that we are just machines reacting to the environment. His theories have had a massive influences on counseling and therapy, leading to countless studies on how the relationship between a therapist and a client can foster growth. Let's quickly recap this section. Both Maslow and Rogers emphasize the positive potential of humans. Maslow focuses on a hierarchy of needs leading to self-actualization, while Rogers emphasizes the subjective self and the drive to be a fully functioning person. Dear students, let us now briefly consolidate what we have covered so far in these chapters on theories of personality. We began by exploring the meaning of personality from its origin in the Latin word persona to its modern psychological interpretation as an organized and dynamic system that defines individuality. We examined the core characteristics of personality, its abstract nature, uniqueness, and continuous development. We then discussed the purpose of personality theories to describe and predict human behavior while remaining scientifically testable. We also highlighted how each theorist's assumption about human nature influences their theoretical models. Moving into the major schools of thought, we studied Freud's psychoanalytic perspective, emphasizing unconscious conflicts and the structure of the id, ego, and superego. We then transitioned to the humanistic movement through Maslow and Rogers, who focused on growth, self-actualization, and the actualizing tendency. Together, this perspective provides us with multiple lenses to understand the complexity of human behavior. So, this is all about today's lecture. In our next lecture, we will continue with the remaining part of this chapter and explore additional theoretical perspective that further expand our understanding of personality development and behavioral explanation. Thank you all for your attentive participation and interest in today's discussion. I hope this session has helped you gain a clear understanding of the foundations of personality theories and their relevance in understanding human behavior. Once again, thank you for your time and attention.